You're listening to a Faith Matters podcast.
Here we are. You have Maree and Denise in the studio. We are talking about Denise's becoming unoffendable. Don't be offended by how I just said that. Blog that she has writes up every week. You can find Denise on Facebook on denise.nz or Instagram, Denise J. Gardner. And you can read up on any of these blogs. You can send your email to her and she will send the blogs out in automatically every week. So your blog this week, Denise, is called I'm Not Talking About Superman.
I'm not.
We won't talk about him then.
Well, I started it off with what's faster than the speed of sound. So I was like looking these things up, and a speeding bullet is faster than the speed of sound. And then I was like, faster than a speeding bullet. Well, I wasn't going to talk about Superman, so there we go. That's where the title came from. But what I was talking about was, we can instantly be somewhere. We can think about it. A memory, we can be instantly there. So
I can instantly be in Bali just by thinking about it.
Exactly.
I'm right there with my whānau.
Which is great, which actually is outside of space and time because it's a memory. So you can be right back somewhere else, and we're not limited when we think of something. The speed of thought is really quick.
It is, isn't it?
Faster than
right there.
Superman.
Speeding bullet.
Even. So I was thinking about that and how we can make a decision to do something and our body can, or emotions or whatever, can kind of lag behind. It takes a while to get ourselves properly lined up with what we're thinking. We make a decision or we want to move in a direction. Sometimes it takes time. We've got to pack stuff up before we move. Perhaps it's old habits keep jumping to the surface. We want to do things a different way, but actually it takes time for us to change those habits. So
absolutely.
Although we're instantly there because our mind's gone, actually, we're going to do this.
So we set the goal.
Yeah.
In our mind.
And then
we've got to act it out, Denise. We have to do something towards that goal, huh?
Yeah, exactly. But then, so when I was thinking about that, I came across an article that was about a group of neuroscientists and doctors who have been doing MRIs on people they said to them, look, when you're in the MRI, when you're in the scan, pray or meditate or do something that, sort of spiritual, and they've been seeing how the brain reacts or how it operates when somebody's engaged in spiritual activities. And what they found was actually that there is a distinct distinct neural pathways that your brain actually activates when you are engaging in spiritual practices, which is pretty out there. And this week, it just so happens that my husband went into the clinic, into the hospital. No, it wasn't the hospital; it was a clinic for an MRI. And so I sat outside. I didn't go anywhere near the machine. They're like, "You're going to have to go without your crutches for the last 5 meters, or the machine will suck them up." And I was just like, "Oh, I'm happy to stay out here."
Yep.
But you said that you had an MRI this week too.
I did yesterday. So for those of you that don't know, I've come through a season of cancer and treatment, and it's been pretty full on for me. And I got my appointment for my MRI. Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I usually say it the other way around, but totally wrong. To check to see the cancer's gone, so I'm waiting to hear the results of that. I'm pretty sure they're going to be great results. I have great faith in that. But you're right, because as soon as I went into before I went into the machine, the guy asked me, do I, want to have any music on? And I'm like, can you put my Faith Matters on? I've got a Spotify, Faith Matters. And he goes, we don't really pick up Spotify that well, and he tried to look for it, he couldn't find it, and so he put Life FM on for me. I'm like, I just needed the God factor in what I was doing, because in a MRI, it's quite claustrophobic. very noisy, lots of sounds happening, vibration. It's quite intense. And the last one I had before this one, I was in there for about 40 minutes. And
wow.
Yeah, because it was a full body one. This is when they were looking for cancer. And it was very intense. I get claustrophobic, like I say. And so just towards the end of that, I was ready to push the buzzer to get me out of there because I was starting to feel it. But the whole time through, I'm praying, I'm thinking about God, I'm thinking about Jesus being with me, just trying to calm my system and be present in my faith, which instantly brings a calmness to me. And so this time it was a 20-minute MRI. I was really grateful. So I was able to have Life FM on, and just having the Christian music around me just calms me, Denise. So definitely when you're in those tough situations like that where you can't do anything and you kind of you've got to go through it, and you do. I don't know how people do it without a faith, because I don't know what they do in there, who they're thinking of, or how they're managing that situation. I instantly feel calmer when I have, like, say, Christian music, or if I'm thinking about God, or I'm talking to a Holy Spirit or Jesus. And to some people who don't know what that means, maybe you need to join us on Sunday, find out what faith is all about, So it's so important for me. It's a staple in my life to be able to have that to go to in those moments.
Yeah, wow. So I guess if you're wanting to learn more about that study that they've been doing with MRIs and trying to observe the spiritual aspect of the way that our brain works, the link to that article is in my blog, so you can click through to it from there. But one thing that they mentioned in there was that they noticed that when people were engaging regularly, so they did these tests and things over a period of time, and when people were regularly engaging with spiritual practices, the amygdala, which is sort of your panic centre, started to calm, and they actually noticed in people who were actively practicing spiritual disciplines, those areas of the brain started to experience peace. And I thought that was really interesting, because we often talk about how peace, often we receive peace in a situation that doesn't make any sense.
When there's chaos, yeah.
Yeah, and so that got me thinking. So sort of as I was doing this blog, I was talking about, thinking about, like when you have an injury or you have a restriction in your body, you tend to compensate. And perhaps in our brains, our brain has been overworking and overcompensating because we haven't been activating that spiritual part, that spiritual neural pathway. And so all of these ideas coming around, it was just fascinating. So when people say spirituality, it's just a crutch. Like, you don't, God's not real, you don't need God, he's just a crutch for weak people. Actually, what I started to think about as I read about this area was that actually, no, if we're not activating our spiritual center of our brain, if we're not using that muscle and building up that muscle, if you can call a part of your brain a muscle.
Not really a muscle, but we'll call it that.
An analogy. Other parts of your brain are having to work harder to deal with stuff because you are wired to deal with stuff spiritually. And it takes some of that load. But when you're refusing to do things in a spiritual way, whether it's walking out in nature, whether it's journaling, whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, whether it's silence, whether it's whatever it looks like, if you refuse to do those things, you're actually robbing yourself of an entire part of your system that was designed to help you deal with it. So now the other parts of your brain are carrying stuff, and it's heavy because it wasn't designed to carry all that. So you've got things like stress and anxiety and fear, and maybe even going as far as self-loathing and reactiveness, and just carrying stuff heavy because you're not activating your spiritual part of your brain.
Yeah, and I called it a muscle, but it's a neuro pathway. That's
Yes.
what we're trying to build and create. I love the fact that it's already innately in us from birth. Isn't that? I mean, that alone talks about a design right there.
Yep.
We're designed to be connected to someone that can give us something that we can't find in our natural world, but is a spiritual connection. And, you know, like you say, a lot of people resist this area. They resist the fact that there is a spiritual part of us.
Yeah. I think, I mean, you could think about a piece of electronic equipment and the fact that there is, say, a USB port in it. Whichever flavour USB port, whether you go the old school ones, whether you go the new fancy, small little teeny weeny weirdo ones, not judging them at all. But, you know, they are designed to plug in to have something plug into them. If there wasn't anything to plug into them, there would be no point to having those special ports. We've got special pathways in our brain that are designed to engage with the spirit realm. So that would suggest that actually there's a spirit realm for us to engage with.
Oh, it's so good, Denise, you know, because if we don't give a thought to this, how do we know? You know, we don't know what we don't know. But now you do know, so you might want to give it a try this week.
Actually, that reminds me of something I read. I remember talking about it briefly on here near the end of last year, and it was somebody had asked the AI question about a question about argue for or against God without using religious stuff, and it came to the conclusion that just amongst other things, I can't remember all the details, but there was something there about design, and it said, you know, if you're walking through a forest and you came across, this is AI talking, if you're walking through a forest, you came across a wristwatch that someone had left on the ground, you would know that someone created that wristwatch because it is obviously designed, it is so precise and so detailed, just for it to keep time, let alone do all the things that it does. It just becomes obvious that there is a designer. And AI talked about us as people who carry design that is so complex that it points to a designer. It just makes no logical sense to think that we randomly got pieced together by flying particles.
Big Bang Theory.
Boom. Okay, yours was a bit of a big bang.
I love this conversation because it challenges us, you know, and we need to be challenged that there is a designer. So why are we afraid of that? I'm not sure why the resistance sits in us, and maybe we need to question ourselves around that. Why do I resist the designer?
Well, I mean, part of it is we like to think that, you know, we do have free will, free choice, and so we like to sort of think we're self-determining. So we sort of think of ourselves as the decision maker, and the idea that somebody might have created us for a purpose and we may or may not fulfill that purpose kind of goes, oh, that means there's something outside of myself that I have to be taking into consideration and really rather do what I want.
Very good, Denise. Yeah, and that can be the stopping point for many of us. We want control of everything, and we want to feel like we are, you know, the destiny makers. Well, we certainly can move towards our destiny, but, you know, the destiny is what is the destiny we're moving towards? Is it going to increase the value of our life or decrease the value of our life? And our Creator always wants to increase the value of our life, not decrease it. So,
and we probably naturally like to move towards comfort, and the road to whatever we've been created for may not always involve comfort, and that's uncomfortable.
Well, to develop ourselves, to challenge our own weaknesses is not comfortable. To want to sharpen ourselves, iron sharpens iron type thing. It's not a comfortable feeling. Some of us want to stay grumpy and angry and bitter and, or just be like that and don't want to think outside of that because change is too uncomfortable. It means, you often hear, well, that's who I am. I'm just like that.
At the moment, that doesn't mean you can't change. That's actually interesting that you say that, because another direction I went in this blog was because talking about that spiritual aspect. So I was thinking, okay, what's something like we were talking about how when you make a decision with your brain, the rest of you kind of has to catch up. But sometimes you can actually make a decision, a spiritual decision, or, you might have some sort of spiritual insight or revelation, and all of a sudden you just know that you know that thing.
Yeah, I know that one.
And the rest of you is just like, but, what I was thinking about was, okay, what's an example of a spiritual decision that you could make that the rest of you might have to catch up with? And I came up with forgiveness. So, we've talked to, people talk about forgiveness and talk about it as being like you are hoping you're drinking poison, but you're hoping that the other person will die. Nicely, without killing anybody. No people were harmed in the making of this radio show. But emotionally we can't let go of that thing, so we're like, well, I can't forgive. It was too much. What that person did was too heavy. But when you go, hang on, there's a whole nother part of my brain that I could be accessing here, and it's a spiritual neural pathway as opposed to these other ones that are holding on. What about if in my spiritual pathway I choose forgiveness? And by letting your spiritual pathway pick up some of that load, you might not feel it immediately. Sometimes you do feel it immediately, but you actually, by allowing your spiritual pathways to pick up some of that load, perhaps some of the other parts of your brain are now, the load that they're carrying has actually lightened because of it.
It's resting.
So now the logic centre, the emotion centre, trying to make sense of it, trying to see something from a different perspective. Now that you've chosen to forgive, maybe now the rest of your brain can start to come into agreement with that. And you might not feel it at first. You don't have to feel all the feelings, but you might have a moment where you're like, okay, I choose to forgive. And I'll tell you what, sometimes when you choose to forgive, you have to choose over and over and over and over. Yeah. So keeping yourself in alignment with what your decision has been in that spiritual aspect, and allowing your logic and allowing your emotion and even allowing your body physically to line up with that decision.
Yeah, and forgiving means you're no longer drinking the poison.
Yes.
Because unforgiveness destroys our body. And we will play scenarios over and over in our mind and make them much bigger than they are. And that's where we, sidetrack into this place of negativity, and it will, what goes hand in hand, depression, the whole lot, that anxiety is all sitting there in this place of unforgiveness.
Dread.
So having a place where we can drop that off, and people struggle with forgiveness, Denise. I've had to... I'm not going to go into it in the show, particularly today, because we're so far through now, but the story behind my own forgiveness. But there was a massive journey God took me on in regards to forgiveness and what it means, because I struggled big time with understanding, how do you forgive? Like, how do you do that? That was always my question, even though I heard people speak on it, give me information. It was like, but how do you do that? How does one forgive? Because to me, forgiving meant that almost like I let the person off the hook.
Yes.
And that's the poisonous bit, is the hook. I want them to suffer. I want payback. I want to see something happen, because of what happened to me.
Yeah.
And so I was constantly holding that and playing it out in my mind, and so you're constantly reminded of trauma, constantly in the moment. So forgiveness for me, God walked me through a journey of forgiveness, and it was an action that I did that where I felt just huge release, and I could actually close the door on that and not take responsibility anymore for any of it. You know, because it was, if I had not learned how to forgive at that point, I don't think I'd be here, Denise. I probably would have drunk myself to death. You know, I would have been a massive drinker who just went off the rails. That's where I was heading. So unforgiveness in me would have been my demise.
Wow.
I know that for sure. So and so I learnt a lot, understanding how to forgive for me, what that meant for me. And you're so right, our spiritual part of us was where I was able to hand it over, and I didn't have to pick it up again.
Right.
I didn't have to carry that back through with me. I could drop it off and leave it. And now that whole situation has been a massive learning curve for me, where I can use it in other people's lives and help them through trauma, help them through what's kept them stuck in these ugly places that they can't get out of. You know, so...
Which in itself is a powerful story, because people who have really gnarly stories, have been through some awful stuff, often can't see past that, yet...
They get stuck there.
You've actually... You know, you've walked that path, and yet you're in a place now where you can help people, and it's awesome, because you're not helping them from they're there, you know, sort of looking in from the outside. You've lived it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an empathy that comes where I can come alongside a person's story. I don't have to engage with it. I don't have to enter in, because I have my own story. I have my own path that I've walked in that. And so I can hear and listen to another person, and I'm not affected by it. I don't go, oh, that aligns with me, and I remember when that, you know, and this happened, and then you're back down in this place of ugliness, whereas actually somebody who's stuck in the mud, you know, you don't want to watch them keep sinking. You don't want to get in with them.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. Hang on, I'm coming too.
Take me down with you, baby. And I often, you know, that's what happens when we have unforgiveness. Somebody else will jump in with us and acknowledge and say, Misery Street, here we come.
I reckon that's good stuff. So if you're interested in like to learn more about that, I do encourage you to go to the website is denise.nz, and then from there you can click through to Facebook or Instagram if that happens to be your thing. But you can also click through to the link on this doctor who wrote about these MRIs they were doing on people and their spiritual neural pathways.
Here we are coming to the end of our show. You've been listening to Maree and Denise on Faith Matters, and we had Umberto and Jackson today with Marriage Matters. I will go home and put the podcast together, so you can,
that's very
you
exciting.
can look this up on the Raglan Radio site, and you can look under Faith Matters or Faith Chats or Marriage. Do I do a Marriage Matters one? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's under Faith Chats. They're all the way that we do the podcasts and the recordings. If you go to the Raglan Community Radio website, we put the whole show under Faith Matters. So if you're wanting to listen to it just as you've heard it on the radio, that's there. And then Maree does the separate sort of podcasts without the music on the separate topic. So that's the part under Faith Chats. So Faith Matters for the whole thing and Faith Chats for the individual components.
Yeah, and you can look up Faith Matters on Facebook or Instagram.
It's easy to know which one it is because she doesn't put a space in between the words.
Because I don't want to be politically correct.
Or grammatically correct.
I know, it's not I know, it upsets a lot of people, but, you know, that probably makes you notice, you know. If you're one of those people, then you'll be noticing Faith Matters.
But I was searching for it, and there are a few other Faith Matters with a space in between.
Yes.
So it's the one with no space.
That's right. And you will find everything you need to know on there, or you could look up Faith Matters with a capital F, capital M, all one word on Spotify if you just want the Faith Matters playlist. So if you want to listen to some good, encouraging, playing music. I can only encourage you to have a listen, and fill your day up with good stuff right there. Yeah, but if you're if you want to learn to become unoffendable, that like me and Denise are travelling through this life trying to becoming
we're doing pretty well.
Unoffendable. You can look up Denise's blog on Instagram, Denise J. Gardner, or on Facebook at denise.nz. I encourage you to look up her latest blog. Click on that link with the neuro pathways and have an understanding on the amygdala and that spiritual part of us that you may have tapped in or not used enough yet. You need to strengthen that neuro pathway a little bit, or if you don't know it at all and it's your first time, then you're going to have a lot of great experiences as you start to open this part of yourself up. Yes. Otherwise, happy Waitangi Day. This is a fabulous day today where we come together in community, in relationship, and be who we are as a people in Aotearoa.
You've been listening to a Faith Matters podcast. If you have questions, email us on faithmatters98.1fm@gmail.com.